Good evening, everyone. My name's Rudy Page. Welcome back and welcome to Vaccine Confidence Dialogues Online. We've got a great evening for you. This is about community well-being and creative presentations. We've got some entrepreneurs with a great creative and musical background. We've got the personal COVID stories. We've got our resident doctor, John Dickham, who will be taking us through some of the vaccine facts and figures. So please sit back and enjoy. And we're going to start the show off today with a short song from Momo Watt, one of our very well-known singers from the community. Thank you very much. Over to you, Momo.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful occasion. You know, a few months back, I had a #1 with this particular track. It's all about the situation that took place with the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. And want to listen to this now. Here we go. I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh yes, it will. It's been too hard living, and I'm not afraid to die, 'cause I know what's up there beyond the clouds. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh yes, it will. Then I go to my brother. I said, brother, help me please. But he just kept on knocking me right back down to my knees. So I go to the movies and I go downtown. Someone keeps telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. There's been times when I thought I wouldn't last long,
it's been a heavy load,
but now I know I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change is gonna come. Oh yes, it will. He's lying there, face to the ground. He called for mama, could have said, help me please. Mama said, son, come on home. Knee on his neck, he crawls out, I can breathe. I was born by the river in a little tent.
just like a river.
And just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Ooh. Oh mama, can you see it? Oh, they're marching on. Oh mama, can you see it? The change is coming up. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right now. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week. But we know it's gonna come. Oh! Oh! Oh!
Wow.
Lives matter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Mike. Momo Watt.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And we'll be hearing a lot
You're
more
welcome.
from you.
Anytime.
Thank you. Right. Now I'd like to go to Robert Rudy, and we'll be speaking to hunters as well. So this section of the program is what we call My COVID Journey and the impact on the family. So Rudy, thank you for your support for this program.
It's okay.
London Inc. in the first place.
It's okay.
And so you can tell us a bit about yourself, then tell us about your COVID journey and the impact it's had on yourself and family.
Okay. So I am the CEO and founder of two organizations. One is the African Nations Football Association, which represents African and ethnic minority footballers across the world, bringing equality and a fair table for us to work from. So bringing us equal to the rest of Europe and how everybody else works within football without racism. We're trying to equal out racism. That's what the African Nations Football Association does. And then I also run a record label and media company with my partner Hunters that you see in the corner. And that is called London Inc. And London Inc. has produced a poem for this vaccine dialogues along with Dave there. And Dave will be performing this poem at the end of this Zoom. In regards to my COVID journey, myself, Hunters and our team, we're working through the lockdown, producing tracks and having meetings and stuff like this. And then all of a sudden we all came down with COVID, 23 of us. And it was really, really bad. I can't describe how bad it is when you get COVID. Until that point, I didn't believe it. I thought it was all rubbish. And I just thought it was all propaganda. Then we got it one at a time. It took us out to the point where I was so worried that Hunter's is a singer, producer, and I was so worried that he couldn't perform. We didn't know what was going to happen with the business. So it was very, very bad. At one point, I thought I was going to die. That's how bad it was. Yeah. We were going to take me to accident emergency. And it just so happened that my mum and my dad had said to me, look, they gave me some herbal remedies that I should try. I tried them and I got better and better. But the effects of actual getting the infection lasted nearly 3 months. Yeah. I'm literally just getting back to normal now. Yeah. And I think that goes the same with Hunters. So this COVID situation is very real, very real. So I'd like people not to take it lightly.
Thanks for that testimony. And Hunters.
How you guys doing? Yeah, just to say echo what Rudy done. Basically, I'm basically from the Asian music scene. Come from a big musical family. Those of you who are from a Jamaican background would know that all my Jamaican friends call us the Indian Morgan Heritage. There's so many artists, who have got deals, and we've been doing music for a long time. But just fast forward, COVID was really, really bad. We went through it. I had no idea it would be that bad. I knew of a few people that had COVID and kind of got over it. We got it really, really bad. As Rudy said, 23 of us came down with it. And I was the same as Rudy, trying to be a big man about it. And then next minute, we're very, very close to saying, call the ambulance. I couldn't breathe. And I like to train like a lot of people do and keep fit. This had nothing to do with that. So it's very, very serious and needs to be taken serious as well.
Great. Thanks for those very, very clear words to our communities indeed. Thanks for that. I'd now like to turn to Dr. John Dickham for the next 10, 15 minutes. So Dr. John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical problems. My laptop isn't connecting to the internet, so I'm using my phone, which now hasn't got very much battery. So I'll see how much
we'll work with it.
It should be fine. Yeah. Thank you for having me on again, Rudy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. So you've heard from both Rudy and Hunters in terms of the challenges around the virus itself, because obviously the virus is the enemy. Can you just give us very quickly some of the key facts about the vaccine?
Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear about the experiences of the two gentlemen on the panel. I'm glad you're better. I know that Rudy mentioned that you felt that you were going to die. I'm glad you didn't die. I'm glad you made a full recovery. But obviously, you also pointed out you had long COVID. Again, this is common. Well, it's not unusual. So I'm sure you're making a steady recovery. I'm glad to hear that you are making a very steady recovery. Rudy, as for the vaccine itself, we know that we've had this rollout, very good rollout in the United Kingdom with the Pfizer vaccine, more recently the AstraZeneca vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson and Moderna vaccine are also being explored that may be rolled out. Obviously, there's some concerns recently. Some data has come out that appears to implicate the AstraZeneca virus in an increased risk of clots. Now, there's no exact relationship yet been identified, but that's obviously a cause for concern amongst a lot of people. I can answer more specific questions actually that I know that some people may have raised in regards to vaccines.
Okay, fine. I guess one of the key things which is really touched on by our previous speakers would be just to explain to everybody how the virus is spread amongst families, at work, and across local communities.
So we know that the virus itself is spread in an airborne fashion. Mm-hmm. There was some uncertainty in March about whether it was airborne or droplet form. We know that it's airborne, meaning that it can stay in the air in very fine particles for up to several hours. Okay, so it can be spread through speaking, coughing, sneezing, spread more easily in closed conditions, so inside a house, inside a room, inside a classroom. Obviously outside, those air particles will be able to spread out more, which is why when we're outside, there's less chance of it being transmitted.
Okay, so in terms of the vaccine itself, then I think it would be helpful just to explain a bit more to our communities that the fact that it is safe, and some of the background to that will be helpful in terms of the benefits versus the risks, and of course the consequences of not taking a vaccine itself.
Okay. In terms of the benefits of the vaccine, what we're looking at is to mount an immune response. So help the immune system of the body, which is the military system, the military of the human body, help it to produce soldiers that are specific to the virus. That usually involves putting a small amount of genetic material inside the body that promotes this response. That's the benefit that's aimed for. That's the benefit that's always aimed for with any vaccine. As for the risk and safety, well, emerging data is showing us that, well, there does appear to be a slight risk of clots in people of a certain age. It's a fraction of a percent, so it's a very small percent, and it is smaller than the risk associated, the risk of clots when someone does have COVID. It's important, though, that people do get their source of information from official sources and from their doctors as well before arriving at a final conclusion. So if you were to ask me, for example, would I have the vaccine? I'd have to consider various factors. I've seen people in the hospital around my age who've had COVID, who've had numerous clots in their lung. Some of them have died. And then I also have to consider, do I have any factors myself that would contribute? So if I was obese, or if I'd smoked, or if I had a history of clots, that may very well be something that I'd consider. And also, do I have a family history of clots? So there are various factors. There is no one size fits all. When people are considering having the vaccine, in my situation, absolutely, I would have the vaccine because the benefits outweigh the risks. But for someone else, that may be a different situation. So I advise people to get information from official sources, to speak with their doctors, to get tailored advice.
Thanks for that. One of the other areas of concern within our communities, of course, is the workforce. So the workforce is our community, and our community is the workforce. Why is it important for members of the health and social care staff to take the vaccine?
People who are client-facing or patient-facing, a social health and social care staff will be, can transmit the virus more easily because obviously they're in contact with more people. This means that it's very difficult to attain herd immunity. Herd immunity means immunity at a community level. So you achieve herd immunity where a small cluster of the virus doesn't immediately put the whole population at risk. So number one, they must get the vaccine. Well, they should get the vaccine to help achieve herd immunity. And number two, to obviously prevent transmission to people who might not be able to mount an immune response and not put them at risk. Because some people's immune systems won't mount a response to the vaccine. People who have a suppressed immune system, for example, those with cancer, those on chemotherapy, those with HIV, those on certain drugs, for example, drugs for rheumatoid arthritis. So I think everyone who can and who's considered things, the balanced risk ratio, should make an effort and should take the vaccine.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I'd now like to really just go back to Rudy. Rudy, is there a bit more you'd like to say about the work that you've done as it relates to Dave and the...
All right, so in
before we
regards
come to him?
to the poem we created, so
Yeah.
myself and you had a conversation about our community not really realizing the risks and realizing the benefits of taking the vaccine. And off the back of that conversation, I went away, had a little think of how we could combat this. In my thinking, I thought of, we could make a song because we're in the music industry. We could make a film because we have a production company.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, this wouldn't be the right thing to do. And then Hunters and I had a chat, and Hunters already knew Dave. I'd already been listening to Dave's poems because they're very motivational. I listen to them in the mornings and they just get me going. So I spoke to Hunters, we had a little chat, and we said, maybe we could ask Dave if he could do a poem for the vaccine.
Yeah.
We spoke to Dave, and Dave was very eager, was very happy. He did it so quickly. Within a day, he had something back to me, and I was like, wow, because he was very eager to be involved, because this is for our community, this is for our people. So he did it, we got it back. Then Hunters took it and did his little bits of magic on it and added some music to it. And we had a piece of magic. And then what we've done is we've created a film around it, but unfortunately, the film is not ready yet because of COVID, because of lockdown. So it's not ready yet. But once it is, we'll release it out.
Yeah, as long as we get it by the first week of May, I'll be happy.
Okay. But one of the things I wanted to say about this vaccine situation and our community in general is being someone who has done things to the detriment of our community. I've realized that quite a few people in our community who are regularly doing bad things and killing our community with different substances and products are some of the first to say, don't take the vaccine. This is one of my issues. The same types of people who are selling death to our communities are saying, don't take the vaccine because they're trying to kill us. But you are happy to sell death to our community, but you're not happy for there to be a chance that this vaccine may work and help our communities. And this is a real sticking point for me, and it really, really galls me.
Well, we've got to keep campaigning.
Needs to open its eyes and say, look, if I'm willing to take drugs, if I'm willing to sell drugs, maybe there's a chance that the vaccine may help. As the doctor said, you will have to speak to someone, get advice, and see if it will help you. But for a large proportion of our community, they're going to suffer from getting COVID, and they don't need to if they get the vaccine.
Great, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And that message is clear to our communities of all ages, that it's important to take the jab, as we say.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave you to introduce Dave.
Okay. Dave, you're on mute.
Dave.
He's still on mute. Technical difficulties.
Yes, we'll get there. There you go.
So let me introduce you to Dave. He's an amazing poet. This small sample of poetry you're going to get from him is the tip of the iceberg to what we have coming in the future. Usually you hear record labels talking about, oh, we have a new track coming out, we have this song, this. We are going to do something very different with Dave, and we're going to bring out poetry that will be inspiring people with music that will touch your soul. So on that note, let me just pass it on to Dave.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you for having me on the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dave Wilkes, an international poet from the UK. And I would just like to share the poem, as Rudy mentioned, what I created. I had some special key words that needs to be incorporated in the poem. And I've done my magic, and I'd just like to share it with you all today. Okay. I've titled it The NHS Vaccine Solution. To every situation, there's always a solution. And taking the vaccination through the NHS is the main solution to this current virus situation. Refrain yourself from twiddling your thumbs and saying, I'll wait. This vaccine solution will help you. Please don't hesitate. What a feeling from within, knowing taking the vaccine, you could have saved someone's life. A son, a daughter, someone's husband, someone's wife. The greatest gift from above is your life, please remember. And release your mind from the stress and this vaccine propaganda. Jokes are connected to laughter, and this virus is no laughing matter. COVID is real. How does this make you feel? Taking your vaccine truly opens an astronomical amount of opportunities, like before in 2020, where there was collaboration in all our communities. Every single person is valuable around us. So please, let's not bring risk to people of any age, especially the wisdom of our elders. There's millions of people around the world who have taken the vaccine and they feel fab. And I'm blessed with peace of mind because I took the jab. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent.
Great.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Really was. The creative, we can feel the emotion. The message is clear. And we've got a few moments before we actually finish. So I'm going to do something quite unusual and ask you to do it again.
Okay.
Is that good?
Okay, thank you very much.
I think Rudy wants to say something just before you do that. Rudy?
Oh, I was going to say, do you want to throw out some questions to our viewers in regards to the vaccine and their opinions on this?
Yeah, yeah, we'll come to that because this is on the creative side.
Okay.
Okay. Go again, Dave. Let's hear it again.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dave Wilkes, international poet from the UK. And I've created this NHS vaccine poem. I've had some very special points that wanted to be mentioned within the poem, and they're all there, all the key buzzwords, as it were. So I've titled this one, The NHS Vaccine Solution. And it goes like this. To every single situation, there's always a solution. And taking the vaccination through the NHS is the main solution to this current virus situation. Refrain yourself from twiddling your thumbs and saying, I'll wait. This vaccine solution will help you. Please don't hesitate. What a feeling from within, knowing by taking the vaccine, you could have saved somebody's life, a son, a daughter, someone's husband, someone's wife. The greatest gift from above is your life. Please remember. And release your mind from stress and this vaccine propaganda. Jokes are connected to laughter, and this virus is no laughing matter. COVID is real. How does this make you feel? Taking your vaccine truly opens an astronomical amount of opportunities, like before in 2020, where there was collaboration in all our communities. Every single person is valuable around us. So please, let's not bring risk to people of any age, especially the wisdom from our elders. There's millions of people around the world who've taken the vaccine and they feel fab. And I'm blessed with peace of mind because I took the jab. Thank you.
Great. Right. Yeah. So the next few minutes, we can have a dialogue. And Dr. John, just before we take any other questions, there has been concern around the speed of the vaccine being brought to everybody. So could you talk about the testing process and the clinical trials and the fact that, you know, who was involved in the different, you know, population groups?
No problem at all, really. Thank you so much. Dave, I'd like to first of all congratulate you and commend you on that touching poem. You know, I share, we and the, you know, myself and the group share all your sentiments. So I thank you for sharing such a heartfelt note. To read this question about the phases of the vaccine, how quickly it was rolled out. So the vaccine, the scientific research that formed the basis of the vaccine had been going on for years prior to clinical research. There are 4 phases of clinical trials, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 1 is when we get healthy volunteers, but none of the phases were actually begun without a robust scientific basis. So people can rest assured that the science behind it is sound.
Okay, thanks for that. And the makeup of the vaccine itself, in terms of.
No problem at all. So as in what the vaccine does, or what is inside it?
What's inside of it, because that's been some of the misinformation in terms of what is actually in the vaccine itself. Yeah,
sure. So obviously the vaccine has to be stored. So most of the components inside the vaccine are going to be there to preserve the material inside. Now, what we do know in the UK, we do have 2 vaccines, the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca. And the Pfizer one is actually a strand of genetic material that goes inside the body. Once it's inside the body is then triggered to program and create a small amount of the cone, spike protein. This then triggers the body's immune system, so the army, to create soldiers that target the virus itself. So that's one way of mounting an immune response. The AstraZeneca involves the introduction of the cone directly into the human body, which triggers the same reaction. So the different vaccines that are now coming out, the Moderna vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they're going to be a whole host of vaccines coming out, are just different ways of triggering an immune response, so that when the virus then enters your body, there's a memory there and your body can attack.
Okay, thanks for that. So is there anybody who has any points they want to raise whilst Dr. John is here? Any other areas in particular?
I'd like to say something, Rudy.
Yeah, of course.
As a musician, there's quite a few musicians that I know that is refusing to take the vaccination. What can you say to them now to persuade them? Because some of them have very strong feelings against it. So maybe you can tell me something that will help.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for asking that question. I'm sorry to hear that your colleagues are reluctant to take the vaccine. This is advice that I would give just to them, but I would give to anyone who's reluctant. I would say, first of all, make sure that the reasons for your refusal are very clear. I know people who have refused and their reasons are sound. They've discussed with their doctors, and if that refusal is based on accurate information from official sources and having discussed with their doctor, it becomes clear that it wouldn't be in their advantage, then absolutely no one can argue with that. But we must be careful that people are reading from official sources, not from dubious sources of information, okay? And each individual has to make sure that they balance the risks versus the benefits, okay? And that's something that they will have to do in discussion with either their healthcare specialist, if they're, if they have a condition that requires a specialist, or in conjunction with their GP.
Thank you for that. Yes, Dave?
Dr. John, I'd just like to ask a quick question. As time goes on, I'm getting to understand, say, especially with the artists, won't be able to fly without this vaccine. Just wanted a confirmation on stuff like that. Let's say within the next 6 to 12 months. What would be the top 3 without having the vaccine that we're going to see taken away from people who are not taking the vaccine?
Sorry, I'm not too clear on the question. The top three.
Yeah, so let's say within 6 months or 12 months that people won't be able to fly. Is this correct information?
So are you
The
asking about
certificate.
the vaccination passports?
Yeah, and the vaccine certificate.
Right.
Yeah, the vaccination passports. I mean, what the government's speaking about at the moment is there will be a requirement to have a passport of sorts or some kind of certificate. I know that the Prime Minister is moving away from the word passport, so certificate, which shows that your body has sufficient antibodies. So either you've had the virus and your antibodies are above a certain threshold, you've had antibodies inserted into you. I know that in some countries they do that. So Regeneron, for example, is one company that provides the antibodies directly into the body. Or you've had the vaccine and also mounted an immune response. They'll be looking not just for people who've had the vaccine, but for people who have sufficient antibodies to keep the antibodies that they're putting out into the public below a certain threshold. So I'm not sure I've answered your question. I think your question is how, is it who will it affect, or the top 3 people that it might affect?
I think it's along the lines of also about access to services as well, as we come out of lockdown, in terms of hospitality, isn't it? Hospitality, there's going to be certain rules, but we're not all clear yet on the guidance around those questions yet. So
yeah, I think so I won't be able to argue. Each private organization and institution will make that decision. They have, that's their jurisdiction. That's their area of jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dave. Actually, I think it probably would be helpful if you could say something about the immune system and the reasons why it should be strengthened, particularly in this era that we're in now. Just generally, I think that would help people if you were to talk about the immune system.
Okay, Rudy, would you like me to speak about the immune system specific to COVID, or just what the function of the immune system is?
Well, both really, because I think the more public understanding there is as it relates to the impact or the potential impact of COVID and what that means for our immune system, and also how we're going to keep well as we go through the pandemic as well. Okay,
I think first of all, people have to understand there are infections all over the place, and the way you get infection is through a virus, through bacteria. There are different ways of getting infection, and as we've evolved, our bodies have developed various layers of defense. The first, most obvious layer of defense is your skin. Obviously prevents bacteria and viruses and various other parasites entering your human body. There are other layers of infections of defense, for example, your saliva, and you can go on and on. But one significant and particularly important layer of defense is your immune system. And your immune system has developed over millions of years. And what the immune system does now, it mounts a response. So I think of it as an army. You've got an enemy that's entered your body. Your body's now been alerted. The general says, okay, fine, we need to get that group over there. And you can think of each infantry group or each set of barracks is tailored to a specific infection. So when your body gets a common cold, the barracks for the common cold, the soldiers for the common cold are mounted. When the body gets COVID-19, if you've had it before, that barracks prepared. Now, if an infection is presented to your body for which there are no soldiers, it will then start to create them and store them away so that the next time the vaccine, infection presents itself, those soldiers are ready to go. Now, the COVID-19 virus is particularly intriguing, fascinating, and terrifying in that it wreaks havoc to the immune system. So sometimes in some people, the immune system can go into overdrive, particularly in young people, it goes into overdrive, and the immune system, and the effect of that is that, yes, it might get rid of the virus or some of the virus, but it can also traumatize your own body and cause a lot of harm to your own body, which seems to be what caused a lot of long COVID. Now, this is why some people might also feel unwell when they get the vaccine, because the body's been prompted to generate these soldiers. The hope is that as more and more people get the vaccine, when the virus is reintroduced, there'll be a more balanced immune response that won't harm people.
Okay. And just looking at the list as it relates to some of the symptoms around long COVID, I mean, it's extreme tiredness, shortness of breath, chest pain or tightness, problems with memory and concentration, difficulty sleeping, heart palpitations, dizziness, pins and needles, joint pains, depression and anxiety, and feeling sick, stomach aches, loss of appetite. That's an extensive list of conditions, though.
I'm smiling because it is a very long list. I don't think I can remember all that myself. Unless, of course, you break it down into systems. We know that the virus affects multiple systems. So if I go through, for example, we know that the virus affects the lungs. Yeah. When you're going to get your shortness of breath, your fatigue, your difficulty breathing. We know that it also affects, it has like flu-like symptoms, which is where you get your bony pain. You get that kind of extreme tiredness, you get that lethargy. We know that the inflammation also affects the nervous system and the brain. That's where you get the difficulty with memory, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating. Okay, so if you break it down into systems, you can then start to actually think about, kind of come up with it yourself. Unfortunately, COVID does affect multiple systems, which makes it a little bit of a mystery. And different systems are affected in different people. And we don't know why. We don't know why you, Rudy, might have shortness of breath, and then I might have loss of concentration, or vice versa.
Right, thanks for that. That's very clear. Any other points or any questions for Dr. John whilst he's here? Points of clarification?
No.
No. So, Dr. John, you've done yet another good job then, haven't you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've explained it better than they do on television, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
really?
real.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. I'm glad.
they need to get you on one of these breakfast TV shows for you
Yeah.
to explain it.
That's your job, Rudy. You're supposed to do that. Get him on there.
And I love
Just
the phrase
get in
that-
touch with
I
us if you
love the
need any
phrase that
management.
doctor uses about the soldiers.
Yeah.
You know, can you imagine the soldiers marching around in your body to protect you? That's fantastic. I love that phrase.
Yeah, coming out of the barracks. I mean, again, it's clear in people's mind, because one of the key things that we've got to do is that, yes, that awareness has been achieved now. We understand that, but what is needed is public or community understanding. And that's the big thing. And that's why we've kind of introduced the creative side, you know, sound and vision, using other means now to get the message across. We have to use music, we have to use the arts, we have to use drama. These things are going to be essential over the next few weeks, because we need to accelerate this process just for the safety of the community and everybody else.
And Rudy,
The problem I think they've had is that the people they've had speaking up about it haven't really got the credibility within our community to be listened to.
And that's why this program is about trusted messengers.
Yes.
Exactly as you said, and people who have influence as well. So it's also, it's not, we don't just need people who know about the technical side, like say like Dr. John, but we need people like yourselves and Hunters and Dave and Momo Watt, who can communicate, and people will listen, and you can use your influence within the communities, your peer groups, to get that message across. But we've got to find the means of helping people to understand. And like Momo Watt identified, Dr. John, when you talk about the soldiers and the barracks, you know, very simple language, breaking down this very technical stuff into simple language. And I think the arts are ideal for that. The poem, again, captured the emotion. Everybody could relate to the elders, the wisdom. We know the high level of community transmission last year and how many elders we lost across our communities last year. So, you know, it is real. It's not something to be forgotten.
Can I also point out that, you know, while we'd lost many older people, many younger people have also perished as a result of the virus. So I think it's important that people like Rudy the Younger continue to share their stories, because many people aren't aware of just how debilitating this virus can be. And you mentioned that you felt so unwell that you thought you were going to die. I suspect that you weren't too far off the mark in thinking that you were very, very sick and probably in need of medical attention. So people shouldn't underestimate this virus. There are people who are 25 who are having to go to ITU. To Roberto's point about the lack of credibility, do you know what? There's been a lot of credible professionals in our communities who have spoken. I mean, Professor Donald Palmer, who's an immunology professor, has spoken as well. And he's been the subject of various attacks. Fortunately, the conspiracy theorists have kind of toned down or calmed down a little bit. And what's coming out more is more constructive and useful information. Because I think if we're going to give out information, it needs to be something that people can use. Which brings me to my final point, if I may, on the issue of safety. I know we've mentioned many times about the vaccine being safe. Of course, safety is a relative term, and we must be guided by the facts that are emerging at any given point. What we know is that the risk-benefit ratio in the people who are 30 and younger isn't so clear. So we need to look very closely at the data, and I would advise anyone who is concerned to certainly turn to their GP or their specialist and turn away from suspect sources.
Right.
Doctor, in the case of, I've had my first vaccination.
You've had your first vaccination?
My first vaccination in
congratulations.
February. Watching the news, you're hearing all sort of different things. Now, is it safe for me to carry on with the AstraZeneca vaccination? That's the one I'm waiting for, the second dose. Shall I carry on taking the vaccination, or shall I just not?
Okay, good question. The thing I would say is, first of all, look at the statistics on the general level and compare it to the individual. So we know that the risk of getting a clot from taking the AstraZeneca vaccine is a fraction of a percent. That risk is a smaller risk in older people than having COVID, than the risk of clot when you have COVID. As to whether you should take the second vaccine, now that's when your GP would come in, and your GP would then ask, okay, does he have factors that might add to that risk that already exists? Is he obese? Does he have high blood pressure? Does he have hypertension? Sorry, hypertension, that's high blood pressure. Does he have previous history of clots, a family history of clots? And they'll be asking various questions to look at your specific risk, okay? And then they would use that information to give you more tailored advice.
Thank you. That's
You're
good
welcome.
advice. Thank you.
I think one of the scary things about this is when you see people of your age and younger dying of COVID.
Yes.
And I was seeing that
Yeah.
on a daily basis while
Right.
I had COVID. It was
Right.
one of the scariest things I've ever seen. And growing up around people being shot, stabbed, this was a different type of thing. This was different. You're sitting at home ill, watching on TV, people across the world, your own age and younger than you, dying of something that it just seemed like we couldn't fight.
Roberto, I'd like to say as well, actually, to that point, first of all, I'm sorry that you've had to witness this. I think we've all been traumatized this year. But I'd like to, for the people listening, I'd like to say that what Roberto is saying is not an exaggeration. I've been a doctor for 10 years. And I've said to family and friends, in my 10 years, I haven't seen death at this speed and on this scale. It has been a frightening time. And again, I'm sorry that you've had to obviously see people, people that have lost people your age as well. So I'm very sorry to hear that. But people who understand just how serious it is.
Right, so thanks for that. Right, I would like to thank you all for attending this evening.
Thank you.
Your contribution has been excellent for us, and this is the first dialogue where we've introduced the creative side and the creative presentations, and there will be more over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So definitely we'll be seeing you all again in one form or other. And thank you very much, and good night all. Thank you.
Really, thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.